Ever so
my
sorry,
darlings.
everybody. We're going to do this all over again because I forgot to click a button. Mr.
Do I
Bad
get
Techno.
do I get my music now?
Yes. 3,
Go.
2, 1. Cue the music. Take 2.
Hello, my little beauties. Are you well? Welcome to the News and Views with the award-winning Evie Café, live today from the Mattioli Woods, Welford Road, home of Leicester Tigers. And we've got 30 minutes of what's happening in sustainable transport, and man, has it been busy. It's been brought to you this week in partnership with Webfleet, who are joining us at the Commercial Vehicle Show in Birmingham next week. Come and find out what makes Webfleet miles better. Just see what I did there? Anyway, today's opinions on a stick are Paul Kirby, the legend, the technical legend, who is bringing you this stream live from his bedroom. We've got Johnny. Are you well, Johnny, in the clubhouse?
Yes, very well. Thank you, John.
I thought he was doing his best work by being silent. And I'm joined by the lovely Sarah Sloman. How you diddling, Sarah?
I'm good, although we're going to have to toggle the mute because we're in the same room with this amazing view behind us.
Unfortunately, we have no Sam Clark this week because he's on his way to Leicester. So no fighting, no punch-ups. It should be quite good, actually. Anyway, coming up, there's a call for an early ban on diesel vehicles after fuel sales fall in London. Net zero homes are being classed as the most energy patriotic, a phrase I've not heard before. The Energy Systems Café report highlights pathways to net zero, and we'll talk about net zero more in a minute. Oh, he's here. He's here. Look out, everybody. Sam Clark in the house. Northgate have launched a micro-mobility lineup to fleets, and the EV battery factory that was planned for Blythe has been ditched in favour of a data centre. But before we kick off with all of that, what on earth has been going on in the last 24 hours? So we've seen Scotland announce that they are going to just ditch the 2030 target for net zero. The world-leading climate change targets that they've whittled on about since God was a boy, they're now saying, oh yeah, we won't worry about that, but we're accelerating our activity to 2045. That, frankly, doesn't wash. And then I heard this morning that Tritium is going into administration, the EV charging company. And it kind of sends out messages to me that it's not as easy as it looks. And if we don't double down, and if we don't sort our lives out, we won't have lives to sort out. Paul, it's getting a bit frustrating now, isn't it?
It is, because it just sends the wrong message. So the whole world thinks everything's moved back to 2035. And actually, certainly from the UK perspective, nothing has changed. The ZEV mandate is still there. And we're just sending out these messages that lead people to think, or lead them into a sense of complacency for whatever reason. And so it would be really good to just double down on getting the insight out there, getting the messaging out there, because it is important for our health, it is important for our climate, and it's important for our well-being as a whole. It's just not the right messaging, in my humble opinion.
Sam, you're endlessly positive about the work that's going on in the real world to get to net zero. Ever bother you, this kind of news, or do you just go, oh, whatever, let's just get on with it?
Firstly, can you hear me okay?
Perfectly,
yes,
thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Sorry, I'm late as always. Yeah, it is. You know, as Paul said, it's not great news, is it? It's not great rhetoric. There is going to be people that fall away in an industry like this that is merging so quickly, and it will be the survival of the fittest, and not everyone will survive. So there is an inevitability that we will see companies unfortunately come and go. But similarly, yes, you're right, John. We will get on with it. The commercial world, the corporate world is cracking on, and we will lead the way and continue to lead the way, irrespective of what governments choose to do. We will crack on. It's the right thing to do. It's the right way to do. It's the most commercially viable way to work in the long run, and we'll crack on. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. There is a stoic determination to just keep delivering, and we at GridServe and all the other major CPOs will continue to do that until our dying breath.
Well, let's start with some good news then. Thank you for those comments. Diesel fuel sales have fallen more dramatically in London compared to the rest of the UK. New analysis suggests sales of the fuel type declined by almost 40% over the past 4 years since London's ultra-low emission zone was introduced, with other regions only reporting a fall of 20%. This has to be good news, Sarah, that diesel is becoming the fuel that just nobody wants. And I suppose what we need to focus on as the EV Café is not that diesel is bad, but that all fuel types can be used more efficiently.
I mean, diesel is pretty bad, especially if you live in a city. Mute, please, otherwise it's going to annoy everyone. We're in the same room, as you can see, so John's just going to go on mute for a sec. Thank you. So yeah, this is a great example of how policy can then inform positive change. So those fuel stations are probably still selling ample petrol, though. They've probably just replaced their transmission pumps with petrol instead of diesel. So I'd love to know what the total wet fuel sale is for the London borough, well, the whole city now that the zone is in, and compare it to places like Bristol or Birmingham or other places that were brave to do exactly this. We did just see a displacement, though, of people sort of giving up their diesel vehicle in favour of petrol. So again, it needs to be overlain with different data about vehicle type as well.
Let's say hello to a few people, shall we? Because I know how much we all enjoy this. Now, first one to smash the doors in this morning was Evie Bino, a very good friend, Ron. Hello, Ron. Good morning. Dev Chakravarti, always here. Bless you. Bit delicate this morning. Went to a talk by Vicky Butler Henderson. That was a good start. Fifth gear recharge has gone back to being fifth gear. And talk of biofuels got the biggest cheer of the night. Interesting. Darren Anvona. Hello. Teresa Swift from Formula Space. Charlotte Simonek. Well, hello, Charlotte. Good morning. Not sure I've seen the name before. Christian Borman. Hello. Ben McDonald. Definitely seen you. Paul Kirby. No idea. Paul is not with us today. We're at Leicester Tigers. Paul is popping off to pay tribute to a friend we all lost recently, Tim Evans, and we wish you well with that, Paul. Dan Martin, Ross Morgan, Bradley King, Colin Hennessy, Carl Elliott, goodness gracious, Ashley Bannister, Paul O'Brien, George Hillman. Let's say hello to Sam Clark, because otherwise he gets grumpy. Michelle Breffett, hello. Ursula Perry, Lloyd Allen in Bristol, hello, darling. Pam Hanlon from Power, oh yes. Grant White, Mark May, Mark, an ever-present, bless you. Thomas Edwards. Do you know what? I just love you people. You just keep coming. I'll start that one again. Shane Reese, Tom Middleditch from the wonderful Europcar, who've provided me with a rental EV for this week, and it's utterly brilliant. The process was fantastic. And Karen Moore, we are enjoying the Tigers. Thank you kindly. Right, Sam, it's over. You can take your fingers out your ears now. Let's move to the next story. New analysis from the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit has found that homes using electric heat pumps, insulation, and EVs use less than half of the imported energy that a fossil fuel-dependent household does. A typical household using a gas boiler and petrol car will be dependent on imports for almost 70% of its energy, or 17 megawatt hours a year. But a home insulated to EPC C standards using a heat pump and an electric car will use less than half, 45% of the energy imports at around 7.5 megawatt hours a year. And homes with a heat pump, electric car and solar panels would use around a third of the fuel imports, just 6 megawatt hours a year. Johnny, you're hugely involved in making sure that we use not only the EVs in our workplace and our work lives, but that they become part of the home sustainable energy network and system. Tell me, do you use solar panels at home? Do you have a wider footprint than just your EV?
I do, John. Yes, I do have a small amount of solar panels at home, which powers a relatively small battery, which then in turn feeds my energy consumption at peak demands or when the grid isn't as clean. And I've also got some solar matching as well on my charger, my great charger, because 9 times out of 10 that my car is parked on the driveway during the week, or 90% of the time. So I don't need it to be super fast. I just need it to be consuming when there's a lot of sunlight. But I think this whole energy patriotic thing that you mentioned, shift towards the net zero homes is much about, and Graham Cooper would probably echo this when he was at the National Grid, it's about national energy security as it is about sustainability. And we do definitely need to reduce the reliance on imported energy, as it, again, not only benefits the environment, but strengthens, I guess, local economies and national resilience.
Yeah, it's interesting because the next story that I've got is about low regret technologies, which of course is the sort of technology that you're talking about. And it says that coupled with accelerated innovation in novel clean tech, it can deliver us to net zero by 2050, according to a new report from the Energy Systems Catapult. The analysis reveals that while there remains significant uncertainty about a pathway to a future energy system, the options are narrowing and accelerating the deployment of key mature technologies, the sort that you've talked about, as well as offshore wind, solar, large-scale nuclear, and the electrification of heating in our homes and buildings at an even faster rate than we've seen over the last 10 years, is essential to propel us to net zero. How fanciful is it, Sam, do you think, that we do kind of all invest in the kind of technology that you and Johnny have when we see governments reining back on this stuff? We know that the technology is there. We know it can be done. I did a journey yesterday from Scotland to Leicester in my Europe car Tesla, and I charged. I had no anxiety. I had no issues. I used GridServe once. I used Tesla charging network once, and the system just works. Why is it such an uphill struggle?
Don't really know how to answer that one, John. Oh, just dropped my iPad as well. Why is it such an uphill struggle? Well, this is an emerging market. It's a commercially difficult one. There's a lot of cost involved in a lot of this emerging technology, and that needs to be paid back. But it is being paid back, and it is becoming maturer by the day. So I suppose it's a progression that we've got to go through to get people into the position. I mean, the low regret technologies is an interesting phraseology used there. I mean, it's. We want it to be no regrets, don't we, eventually? So if it's low regret now, we want it to get to no regret, so that it's just the thing that we do in order to create local sustainable generation, or do whatever we have to do to remove our dependencies on fossil fuels. So I quite like that. I quite like that phrase, low regret technologies. It's just, how do we get it to no regret?
But I think, Sam, the frustration for me is, and let's deal with this for a while. The frustration for me is that we've had solar panels for 20 years. They've been widely available, feed-in tariff was there, well supported, and so that's proven technology that works. Offshore wind, we're an island nation. We should be using offshore wind. We should be using tidal. We shouldn't be building massive, great cables to bring energy from Denmark into our country when these proven technologies will provide the infrastructure and the energy that we need. Sarah, would you agree? Or am I just on?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I've been reading up this week, and again, Sam, me too. I had this low regret technology for the first time just this week at the launch of the bright green screen contactless kiosk thing that I was at. But it's so much more complicated than we think. I mean, a lot of the housing stock in the UK isn't appropriate for these technologies, particularly where I live in the Cotswolds. It's very difficult to retrofit these modern technologies to older homes, but that's a bit like the whole driveway concept of EV charging at home too, so it's not insurmountable. But there's so much more happening in the world with policy changing for the way in which we account for our energy. When we think we're buying renewable energy supply, well, actually that might not strictly be true, but they have to reconcile it every single year with certification. So they're going to be moving away from doing that once a year to having to potentially do it for every hour consumed of energy. Now that's going to be a complete game changer. There's no hiding there. You can't just write it off, match it off, reconcile it off. It has to be exact, that you haven't just pushed something swept something under the rug about your consumption. And I'm looking forward to that, because that sort of takes the pressure off the individual consumer to have to worry so much about this. But Darren, I'm going to shout out to you, and thank you, Paul, for highlighting his comments a couple of times there. If you do have a home that can experience solar and battery storage, then yes, you will see a fantastic reduction in your overheads, to the extent where the price of battery storage has come down so significantly that to buy a home Powerwall or equivalent is now only seeing sort of 3 to 5 year payback on your property. People when you're looking at sort of selling a house, and now the estate agents are asking you about what retrofit energy supply you have so that you can support the next person living there too. So the more we can talk about it and share positive stories around it, the better. I haven't heard any negative stories about it, except high overhead, low payback, but that gap is closing.
And that's exactly the point that Sarah Gray makes, I think. I really, really wanted a heat pump installed when developing our house this year, but the cost was too high, a lot more. And that's with the grant funding that's available, I suspect. So it is frustrating that we have the desire, but sometimes fiscally it just doesn't stack up for domestic users. Interesting. Now, Sam, did you used to run a micro logistics company way back when? Just checking.
Oh, only for 10 years, nothing major.
Only for 10 years. Good. Okay, we might come to you for some comment eventually then, because a new micro-mobility program, which offers a range of electric vehicles, including electric utility vehicles and e-cargo bikes, has been launched by Northgate Vehicle Hire. The new offering for fleets is in response to what it describes as a growing need for emissions-free, flexible electric options to sit alongside more traditional commercial vehicles. It says that from business or educational campuses to industrial or military sites and municipal parks and gardens, micro-mobility vehicles can offer high efficiency, a high payload and low running cost to fleets. Let's go across to our expert in commercial vehicles, Paul. Micromobility, you're heavily involved in vans, but micromobility is very much part of that last mile delivery infrastructure that we all rely on.
Yeah, absolutely. And downsizing or right sizing the vehicles to fit the job is absolutely key to the way that the market is going to change. We can't just keep doing the same things that we've always done. And having seen firsthand delivery mates in central London sort of deploying the Amazon parcels all around London on cargo bikes and the Eve cargo bike, EAV, getting into some kind of sort of position to kind of do a job, and the cleaning in Westminster, doing different things, it really can be quite an effective option. And seeing a company like Northgate, a behemoth when it comes to commercial vehicle rental, then you feel like that it's beginning to get the traction and the money and support behind it that it really needs to become the true solution or alternative option for cities all across the country.
It's interesting comments. I just want to pick up. Shane Rees is saying that he's recently seen secondhand solar panels from solar farms that are slightly lower output than modern ones, but they're available at £40 a panel on eBay and still got 20 years of life in them. And Sam, Dan Vona, he reckons that you love EV cargo bikes. Off you go.
No, not particularly, because they don't really work in mass markets. I can't really agree with Paul, unfortunately. I mean, there are definitely, jokes aside, there are definitely applications where micromobility is needed, and it's already being demonstrated. So there are a multitude of niches where that volume is good. But saying the thing that is critical is, in this particular logistics world, doing the same thing in the same way is actually quite important. What we need to do is electrify vans and allow them to do their jobs, because that is the vast proportion of logistics in the UK is done on those sort of vehicles, and they need that size, they need that capacity, they need that range, they need that weatherproofing, they need that security, and that will not change. So it's really important that we focus on getting as many electrified commercial vehicles and vans as we possibly can. There is a market for cargo cycles, but it is niche. So, I mean, DPD did cargo cycles many years ago. They don't do it anymore. They've got thousands and tens of thousands of electric vans because that's the right thing for the job. So there's a little bit of marketing going on here, I think, but at the same time, there's definitely a need for everything. It's no silver bullet. We do need lots of different versions. But if we're going to make a material difference, it's the van that needs to be electrified, and not try and diversify into, bear in mind, logistics is a very 2% margin. It's very, very tight margins. And that's why I got rid of all of my cargo cycles that I owned, and I converted them all to a fleet of over 100 electric vans, because that is how I made commercial viability and still maintain zero emission. And that's why DPD and many others have done the same.
Helpful, Sam. Thank you kindly. We've lost Sarah, but hopefully we'll get her back. Johnny, we're all appearing at the Commercial Vehicle Show at the NEC in Birmingham next week. All of these kind of vehicles will be there for people to see and try. You're going to be there. Are you looking forward to it?
I am indeed, John. Apologies, it's very noisy where I am right now, so I can just about hear you, but hopefully it'll be just as noisy next week at the CV show on the EV Cafe Village stand, where we showcase the entire ecosystem when it comes to transitioning to an e-mobility fleet.
Absolutely, thank you, Johnny. Now then, after years of uncertainty, this is some strange news, and I don't know whether to be sad about this or not. Plans to build an electric vehicle battery plant in Northumberland have been scrapped. British Volt had planned to build a 3.8 billion gigafactory in Blyth, but it collapsed at the start of last year after running out of money with a loss of more than 200 jobs. Following the collapse, Australian firm Recharge Industries bought British Volt, but the factory site has remained undeveloped. The council says it's now considering amending the buyback option in exchange for up to 110 million from a private equity firm, Blackstone, who plan to build a hyperscale computer data center campus on the grounds. Sarah, you and I were discussing this before we came on air. I'm sad to see that we haven't got that particular gigafactory coming, because British Volt promised so much. Using a data center, do you think that this change of direction has anything to do with Somerset and the potential gigafactory there?
Well, that was my first reaction. So, I don't read your script before because I do like to give an organic reaction to the news items. Great range of stories today, by the way. But yes, that was what I thought, because we covered that off, that we're very happy to be having that happen. Because again, we've waited ages, just like Blythe waited for ages to find out what's going to happen to that site. But I'm not surprised at all that they've made the commercial decision to instead go for a data centre. I don't think there's a week that goes by where somebody doesn't talk about data being the new oil, particularly for our industry that we're in now. Every OEM, every manufacturer, every single person is thinking carefully about how to translate the data they're collecting about the people who are using this infrastructure and how best to deploy it for better decision making and also better commerciality. So UK's long been known for its ability, I think, Silicon Valley equivalent here in the UK. So I am pleased. I think we'll still see the same amount of jobs. It's a sad blow for us in our industry, but a wider, bigger thumbs up for the UK.
We might just have to have a punch up, I think. Ben McDonald, EV cargo bikes rock, all capitals. Shouty, shouty, good man. Sarah Gray, e-cargo bikes in London have made over 1 million temperature-controlled deliveries for grocery multiples. I guess you said it earlier, Sam. There is no single silver bullet, and we do need all kinds of new infrastructure and stuff that we know is tried and tested and works. Shouldn't we just embrace it all? Shouldn't we just be saying, whatever it is, if you're prepared to try it and try to make an impact, then you go for it?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, you can spout a number of a million movements of one product, but then not, if you don't compare it to the tens and hundreds of millions of the same thing being delivered by commercial electric vehicles or commercial vehicles, then it's disproportionately displayed. I mean, yes, it's great. We can all sit on the outside and go, yeah, they're great. Cargo cycles are brilliant, but someone's got to make money out of this. I haven't ever heard of a cargo cycle company selling for millions and millions of pounds. There has to be a commercial viability to everything that we do. Otherwise, it's just a nice story. And I've been at the coalface of this, right? I've run a business for 10 years and it's hard work to make a margin in the logistics industry. And you can't do it with cargo cycles. It's a great story. And I'm sure there are niches, but someone has to run the business. They have to own it. They have to invest in it and they have to make profit. And that is a very, very difficult thing to do.
Let's go to Paul first.
Can we reach out to?
Sorry, Sarah.
I will do this. I will reach out to the owner of Delivery Mates because they're doing almost entirely their business. Now, Sam, I agree with you entirely on the premise.
Excellent.
Let's move on. We need more electric vans. We need, because the electrification is not moving fast enough. But equally, the way our cities are changing and the way the roads are changing and the way we want to move traffic away from the city centres and drive down congestion, the bikes provide a solution. There are companies out there making money in this. Because you weren't able to make money doing it, it doesn't mean to say other people can't make money doing it. And
I did make money, but I did make money, but it's because I changed the entire fleet to commercial.
But what I'm saying is that other people might be able to make money doing something slightly differently looking at a longer life cycle model, different things. Anyway,
Yeah.
what you can't just bear it on your own experience. You've got to have a look at what else is going on in the market, and I think it's really important to take the full view in, not just a narrow view, because we've got a narrow view of you today as well. Sort of
before we go to Sarah, Ben McDonald says, Zedify, how are they doing? And he also says, 100% agree with you, Paul. Sarah.
Sorry, I'm just wrestling with the mute. Sorry. There's 3 key things to note here. It's the Great British Fleet event and Northgate were there. And yes, indeed, they were promoting the alternative methods of getting around. Second thing is, as Paul just quite rightly said, cities are changing. The landscape is now making it incredibly difficult for vans to make drop-offs, including those red lines that mean you can't stop where you want to stop. So the last mile delivery has to be either on foot or small micro-mobility. And the third thing is, that was it EAV, Paul? I can't remember. They were on one of our first ever episodes of the EV Cafe. And I remember this because I've been going back through the archives because we're now 4 years old. So, you know, when in a day where we're seeing big names drop away from our industry, it's so great to see the brands like that carrying on and flying the flag. And as Sarah did say, other Sarah, not me, these have their own use cases. People that want 1 hour courier services. It's not necessarily parcels being passed around. It's goods, it's important things, it's blood, it's all got different applications. So I'm all for it. The more sort of space we can take up, the better.
Let's just finish with Chris Demetriou's comment from Islington Borough Council. And here's a man who is walking the talk every day. We need more electric everything. But Sam is right. Horses for courses. We run a small fleet of EAVs, great for quick last mile type deliveries and staff getting around a lot quicker. Of course, not suitable for many other services they operate. And it is horses for courses. I think if anybody is bombastic about this and takes a strong line because they have a vested interest, then they're making a mistake. We have to find the right solution. It's the thing you say, Sam, isn't it? It's right charger, right time, right place, all that stuff. We have to have the right vehicles for the right journey cycles, operated by the right people to make them work. So fascinating, brilliant conversation today. Thank you all for inputting. So Ben McDonald just says nay. He's going back to the horse by the sound of things. Anyway, if you've got any clean transport, PR or news stories you'd like us to pull to bits, chat about and throw in the bin, then send them to us at hello@evcafe.org. Until next Friday, it's goodbye from me and it's goodbye from the fabulous team at the EV Cafe. It's been an EV Cafe production to you this week in partnership with Webfleet. Joining us at the Commercial Vehicle Show in Birmingham next week, come and have a hug and find out what makes Webfleet miles better. Other sustainability news services are available, but this is just
butter! Turn that brown upside down.
The EV Cafe is truly blessed to be partnered with the AA, Webfleet Europe, Car, Plug Me In, Paythrough, Iveco, Zaptec, Drax, Spiri, Hydrock, Allstar, Interval, Schneider Electric, and Dynamon. We are the EV Cafe, supporting the transition to net zero and zero emission transport. We don't need government, we doing it. Enjoy the rest of the day and the weekend wherever it takes you. Until next Friday, bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, now you all want the video running, don't you?
Here we
Where
go.
is it?
John Coupleditch. Ooh, that's a good name.
Ooh.
2 ditches.
End it.